Jazakallah khair. I pay tribute to the organizers, mashallah, the Dawah Center here in the west end of Atlanta, Georgia, is officially on the map worldwide because of the power of the internet. There will be many more people watching this on the internet than are in this room, even though I like to appeal to our viewers, even overseas viewers, that the enterprise of Islam in America is like Allstate Insurance. It's in good hands, and it's moving forward. And it's something very amazing and provocative and unique. So I begin in the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. Salli wa sallim, barik ala Sayyidina Muhammadin Nabiyul Ummi, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I appreciate the flattering introduction that Brother Hamid gave me, and of course, I always told him that flattery will get you everywhere. I'd like to start with a few points. My assignment today was to relate some of the current events going on in the Muslim world and relate them to the Dawah efforts here in Atlanta, Georgia, and here in North America. I'd like to start off by getting one big point out of the way, that Imam Ayub in his khutbah made a point that you here today, now, in this room, and to make it further, because of YouTube, you who are watching this and listening to these words right now, you Muslims, Allah has given the burden and the responsibility and the future of Islam in your hands at this time. You are holding the future of the development of the Deen and the expansion of it and the guidance to humanity. This is your turn. This is your day, okay? So this is an important point I wanted to get out of the way. And also, when we look at some of the shayateen forces around us, some of the forces that wish not for the presence of Muslims in America, wish not that Islam would have a high profile in society. We have a precedent in our history that I'd like to bring out, that Khalid bin Walid, before he converted to Islam after deep thought, and then he gave his sword to the Prophet and said, this sword has killed so many Muslims, like that battle of Uhud, as you all remember. He laid in wait when the Muslim archers on the hillside left their positions, and he said, okay, we're going to go around that mountain and catch them from the back, and then our boys on the other side, we're going to sandwich them in, even to the degree where the Prophet, peace be upon him, was wounded, and the sister Nusayba took several wounds on her body. These are the kind of women that brought Islam to the world. Don't worry about the men. The women will protect and propagate Islam. There in Medina and here now. Look at the other figure, Abu Sufyan, fighting tooth and nail, his clan against the clan of the Prophet, his designs, his business contacts in Abyssinia and Jerusalem and Syria, all lined up to extinguish the flame of Islam. What happened? At the 11th hour, when it was Jay Leno time, he decided that, hey, the writing's on the wall, I've got to submit. He accepted Islam. So why am I going through the stories of like Khalid bin Walid and Abu Sufyan? Because we have Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, Bill Maher, and so many other media pundits. Do not, sisters and brothers, think that these people are anything of significance. You know the verse of the Quran that says they try to extinguish the light of Allah with their breaths. Can you imagine? It's extinguishing the sun 93 million miles away with their breath. Come on. But people like Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity and others who are on the radio 24/7 degrading the image of Islam, I say to them instead of saying curses be upon you, I say to you, you guys will be the new Khalid bin Walid and the Abu Sufyans, and you're fighting tooth and nail. So before it's too late, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, Bill Maher, and other people who wish not for the benefit of Muslims in Islam in North America, we invite you to investigate and to study about and to meet the right Muslim. That's really what's happened. They haven't met the right Muslim yet. Who knows? One day they'll be at a gas station or a Kroger's or something, right? And they'll see the hijab sister or some brother. You know what I mean? This is how Allah touched their heart. Whether it's like Imam Ayub just said, it's not only about, hey man, you know, Jesus is not the Son of God, he's a prophet, you know, how can Jesus be God? You know, these theological arguments. When he was on the cross and he said, oh, my Father, oh God, why have you forsaken me? Well, if Jesus is God, why is he asking God? I mean, you know, hey, let's see, what's the problem here? So this is a verbal dawah. But the dawah of example, if we set up in our community strong men and women who came from various backgrounds in the society, and instead of becoming a statistic, they became productive members of the society, family people. The women, if they can just put up with us brothers just a little while longer, you know what I mean? We might have a very bright day. When another Imam I get so many inspirations from his short khutbah. Enter into Islam wholeheartedly, kaffatan. Look at our women. They are entering because of so many reasons, especially the flag of Islam in this society being the hijab, right? And so many of our fellow American citizens, the other 300 million out there, the only thing they know when they see that Muslim woman, oh man, that's a Muslim woman, right? Some of our men, we can easily, blend in, with different dress modes, etc., etc. If I remove my kufi, I'm just like any old university professor, you know what I mean? Riding a bicycle, getting my exercise. But when I put on the kufi, all of a sudden, all the false racial separations in our society, you see? I go to the airport sometimes to give the khutbah down there at the Interfaith Chapel. I live in Stone Mountain, so I take the MARTA. Instead of driving, burn $14 worth of gas and $10 to park, instead I take, the MARTA for a couple of bucks. And I usually wear my kufi, okay? I get on the MARTA at Indian Creek, get off at 5 Points, go south to the airport. I kid you not, and I want our overseas listeners to understand this real well. This kufi separates the false racial barriers of our country. Why? Because when I put it on and take the MARTA, almost every other stop, some man gets on, usually a young black male, probably not even a Muslim. But because of the symbolism of Islam, and the street value of Islam, and the blood of the martyrs of Islam, they identify me as a Muslim, and they come give me salams. Imagine. Not once or twice. One time, 7 different people at 7 different stops came up to me, Assalamu alaikum, brother. I'm 3 times older than they are. And we talk, and we have a nice conversation. They get off, somebody else comes on. So this symbol of Islam, whether it's the women or this, something low-key like this has been an engine of dawah in the society. Not because I'm arguing with them about the status of Jesus, peace be upon him. Not because I'm asking them about, tawheed and lecturing them on tahara and how to go to the bathroom and so many things that we take for granted in Islam. No. The example of just seeing the Muslim in operation. And before I get to a couple of bullet points to end my presentation, and we want participation, there's a gentleman that I was giving dawah to from 1995, and I'm not going to say his name, 1995 to 2006, that's 11 years. He not only was in the church of this guy, Bishop Eddie Long. Eddie Long has that mega church in East Atlanta with over 40,000 parishioners. They have to do 2 or 3 shifts. This is the guy that was on the news because of, sending selfies of himself, in a provocative way to some of his friends of the same gender. We won't go into that here. But anyway, this man that I'm giving dawah to was not only a member of that church, he was one of the deacons, way up in there, as we say down here in the West End, not only in the house, way up in the house. And he was next to this priest, and we talked to him about dawah, about Jesus, about this, the theological arguments. None of this ever made any progress. But one time, his job, which sells hair care products, they sent him to Africa, to 3 or 4 cities, Dar es Salaam, Accra, Ghana, Senegal, Dakar, and a couple of places. And while he was in Africa, and let's face it, an African-American male of conscience, a mature man from the Black Panther Party of the 60s to the other progressive black movements in America, and he's a staunch Christian. But when he had his feet on the ground in Africa, he told me that he felt the earth shaking because he heard the adhan. All those capitals, they're not just Muslim cities, there's all kind of people there. There's Muslims and Hindus and Indians and Africans and Europeans, everybody's there. But when he was in Dar es Salaam and those other African capitals I talked about, he would hear the adhan and he would see the interaction between the Muslims and the others. And he would see the people embracing each other on the street, having tea together and hugging each other. And he saw the Muslims in action on the African continent. And he, as a proud African-American male, he said, this is where I belong. This is what I'm a part of. This is my heritage. So all the arguments mean nothing. The example of the Muslims in action made him not just a believer, a very strong believer. Okay? So these are some of the examples I like to say. I was invited a couple of weeks ago to the United Nations. I was invited by the Iranian delegation. The president of Iran was there. I was one of his guests. We had like 50 different Muslim activists and organizational leaders and scholars from different schools of thought within Islam. You see, Michigan was very well represented because so many Arabs and Muslims in Dearborn. So many. I met a Palestinian woman lawyer. I met a Palestinian woman judge. African-American woman, municipal judge in a big section of Michigan. He was amazed to see the diversity of our community. I was able to talk to him. He gave me a few things that he wants me to do. Anyway, I'm saying this because why? I've been involved in a lot of the political, happenings of the Muslim world for many, many years. For me to be invited by the Iranian delegation, the one that's the most, you see, under the magnifying glass of the West, it makes me very proud. Because why? I didn't get invited by the Egyptians, who just brought a military dictator who killed and broke the skulls of the Muslim Brotherhood and the clean Egyptian Arab people who for the first time in history brought an elected government to office, and immediately the shayateen went to work to destroy the potential of an Islamic regime in the area. And the so-called champions of Islam over there in Saudi Arabia, they couldn't get along with a functioning Muslim republic next door. They would give the Muslims room to breathe and room to develop and to use their collective and individual intelligence to not only develop that country, but to, in the words of Mohammed Morsi, the elected president of Egypt, when he stood at the United Nations a couple of years ago, he said, we Egyptians want to provide a future of help and aid and everything, not just to our people, but to the whole of the African continent. This made a big impression on me. Because a lot of Egyptians, they become kind of sellouts. They consider themselves, oh, we're Arabs, we have nothing to do with Africa. Hey man, where is your country? Your country is in Africa. But they try to say, oh, we're not Africans, we're Egyptians. So there's a lot of problems. But when the Muslims came to power, they were happy to focus on the needs of the hungry people, especially the children. Mohammed Morsi said, the president of Egypt said, I don't want to have one hungry child in all of Egypt. Then we're going to begin working. But the first goal is not to cut any hands. People were scared of the Sharia and all this kind of stuff. We're not going to cut hands, we're going to cut the unemployment rate. And so these kind of things, he said, made the Saudi champions of Islam next door get really nervous. And they got together with all the other shayateen, and now they're happy to see a military dictator over there cutting heads, killing people with a very dark day, worse than when Mubarak was there. I'd like to say that. I wasn't invited by the Egyptians or other sellout regimes over there. I was invited by a very important, independent, dynamic regime that makes its own mistakes, but they're their own mistakes. They're not the mistakes that are given to them by Washington, London, Paris, and other places. So when I was over there, I was caught up on many of the developments of the Muslim world. I can't go into them in so much detail, but let's make a bullet point here. Why isn't this ISIS problem? Why isn't it in Uganda? Why isn't it in, you see, Bangladesh? Why isn't it in, you see, Tanzania? Why is this ISIS problem over there in Iraq and Syria? Could it be that the oil is over there? Could it be that the world Zionism and imperialism have been planning this for 20, 25, 30 years? You know how we Muslims are. We can't even remember what we had for lunch yesterday, right? But these shayateen planned 20, 30, 50 years in advance. Henry Kissinger, may Allah curse him, or maybe Allah guide him to Islam before he dies. But when he made the foreign policy of this country in the 70s under Nixon, we are suffering today from the policies that Kissinger made 40 years ago when he talked about these crafted words by the State Department, Israel's right to exist. Let me just talk about that for a minute. These 4 words, Israel's right to exist. When the slavery was in America, the master would say to the slave, "Am I your master?" And Kunta Kinte had to say, after getting whipped up 50 times, "Yeah, okay, you're the master, okay." Do I have the right to be your master? No, they wouldn't give that. They wouldn't concede that, okay? So the Israelis are saying to the Palestinian deprived, defenseless people who died by the hundreds compared to one Israeli death. Look at the Islamic rules of warfare. Didn't he, peace be upon him, the prophet, say, don't burn trees and crops and animals, and don't hit women and old people in houses of worship, right? Truly, this last little round in Gaza, 67 Israelis died. 64 of them were soldiers in uniform. This is exactly according to Islamic concepts of warfare. Whereas on the Palestinian side, 2,200 people died, not 67. 2,200. Half of them women and children. How many mosques and hospitals? These shayateen say to the Palestinians, "Do I exist?" Oh, doggone, you sure do exist. Do I have the right to exist? You see, this is the trick that Henry Kissinger, may Allah curse him and guide his progeny to Islam. And I hope someone who knows him is listening, due to the power of the internet. Maybe when Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity and all these other shayateen come into Islam after Allah changed their heart, maybe Kissinger, we'll make you the sheikh, okay? We'll make you, Henry Kissinger, the Amir, okay? So these are the points I want to tell you, brothers and sisters. We are living in a time when the big shayateen will crumble and fall at the feet of Islam, okay? We don't want to be crazy like this other guy in England who was making a lot of problems with Muslims. I don't want to say his name, but if you look at the TV, they say provocative things just to get on the news. They say things like, the flag of Islam will soon fly over the White House. These Fox News people love it when a Muslim says something crazy like that, okay? Because that lets them back up the suspicion that every one of you wants to smile in the face of America yet stab them in the back, okay? This is the wrong attitude to take. This is not Dawah. This gentleman who says that in UK has recently been arrested because of connections to this ISIS. So why are these ISIS people in Iraq and Syria? And why not in, Uganda or Algeria or Tanzania? Because the oil is there. Let's be sensible about this. They are created by world imperialism. They are created by world Zionism to give the Western big powers a pretext to put the boots on the ground forever, for good, on oil fields. Because why? Henry Kissinger said 40 years ago, we have to put boots on the ground in the oil field. He said that in 1975. It's 40 years ago. So let's be real, brothers and sisters. So I want to wrap this thing up because I want to have some participation. We have such a great potential to spread the message of Islam and to bring more people into the message of Islam, because with these shayateen on the radio and TV, we say any publicity is good publicity. Because what happens to an educated person if you tell them, don't go near those Muslims, don't talk about that Quran, don't let those Muslims breathe, stay away from them? What's the first thing the American people are going to do? As soon as you turn your head, they're going to check out the Muslims. So any publicity is good publicity. Now you've got people who can't even spell the word Sharia. And they're in Lincoln, Nebraska, and Oshkosh, Wisconsin, talking about Sharia. This is the divine plan of Allah. Allah knows best. This is the divine plan, so that when Allah decides, when He turns on the light, like the Sheikh said, when you turn it off, it gets dark, right? But as soon as you turn on the switch, boom, it's there. Okay? So Allah's plan is divine. We are part of it. We have to make strong families, and we have to understand that the future of our community is based on developing our infrastructure, proper families. I know the sisters are getting impatient. They know that you brothers are going to, get on the right track sooner or later. They've given us a lot of time, but let's not use any more time. Like the marriage, for instance. We have so many important, like I'm working now on the 46th anniversary with me and my wife, okay? I got kicked out of my family a long time ago because I married this lovely woman. But I mean, there are four reasons for marriage in Islam, as you know. Lineage, lineage, like big family, or wealth, right? Or then you got beauty, or the Deen, right? Those are the four things. So Obviously, my wife married me because of the beauty, you know. But, we just can't emphasize that too much sometimes. But of course, she made that mistake, but it was 46 years ago, so it's too late to change now. So I'm asking you, brothers and sisters, to put the deen up front, to do the relationships between the siblings, between the sisters and brothers and the parents. Let it be Islam-based, and when you need help, seek help. We have knowledgeable people in this room, in this city. Allah has blessed us. You know how Islam is always so appealing to people because it's simultaneously local and global. The idea of Ansar and Muhajirin, right, is always there. The Muhajirin were there, and the Ansar were there. And so that brings the groups together. So similarly, here in North America today, we have Muhajirin from all those countries over there, and we have the Ansar, the American, indigenous Muslims. So we have the potential to bring about a very new day. I want to tell you that it's the time for your true sincerity and dedication to break on through and to bring the next generation that's going to hold this baton. وصلي وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Ya Allah, Ya Kareem, guide the Muslims, give us unity. Ya Allah, enter us into the paradise not because we deserve it, but because of your extreme mercy. Ya Rabbal Alameen, Ya Allah, Ya Kareem.